morning, everybody, and welcome to Shift. And we're so glad that you're here, whether you're in person or on the stream. If this is your first time here, you can scan this QR code or the one back at the welcome table. And if you fill out the Connect card, we'll send you some free Opus coffee. Mark your calendars for August 27th. That is our 70s cosplay Sunday. You can dress up as your favorite 70s era, person, thing, whatever. Mark your calendars, don't forget, and come be a part and have a blast. Our small groups are starting back up next month. If you would like to be a part of one of those small groups, you can scan this QR code, scroll down, and fill out the small groups thing. Fill that thing out. And we have in-person and hybrid options so that all of our people in Florida, all the way up to Canada, can be a part. Speaking of groups and things, Shift students are having their first meetup on September 10th at the Culvers in Butler Plaza at 6 p.m. So come join, we're gonna hang out, eat some food. There may be tabletop games, don't miss out on some Monopoly. Mark your calendars, don't forget, come join, it's gonna be a blast. And last but not least, on August 20th, we're gonna be having a training session for all of our volunteers. And if you're thinking about volunteering but don't know where to start, this is a great place. I promise it'll be short and sweet, fun, super easy. If you're interested in joining, you can scan this code to RSVP. All right, and that's all of the things for today. So let's keep doing the summer jams with Simple Man.
But this song was first released, Simple Man was first released on August 13th of 1973, and it was the fourth track of their debut album called Lynyrd Skynyrd. And it was written by band members Ronnie Van Zant and Gary Rossington. Van Zant's grandmother had just passed away, and Rossington's mother passed away around the same time. And so they were just like sitting in their apartment, like reminiscing the stuff that these women had said to them, and then all of a sudden this song begins to form. And so they went and grabbed their guitars, and we have Simple Man. Now the funny thing is that when they put it together, I mean, it's a classic, and the band loved it. But the producer of the album, his name is Al Cooper, thought it was weak, thought it was too weak for the album, and so they went like back and forth. He didn't want it. They fought for it. So what the band did was they made him leave. Like, go sit in your car. We're going to finish this. And they put it together. And then even Al Cooper later recorded that organ part that's in there, and still fought to keep it out. Clearly not knowing what an amazing song that they had here. I want to welcome you guys to week 2 of Summer Jams and Shift. Last week we took a look at the Beatles song "Let It Be," and we found this prayer in the middle of this song that goes like this. It says, "When all the broken-hearted people living in the world agree, there will be an answer, let it be." And we talked about how that prayer parallels the wisdom found in Matthew 25 about taking care of the poor and the marginalized. And we talk about how the things that we do, how we live, how important they are, and how we interact with our neighbors, it either marks us with this empathy, a certain kind of empathy, or a certain kind of callousness. And today, we're looking at Simple Man by Lynyrd Skynyrd. Now, this song is an absolute classic, and every time we listened to it this past week, my wife was like, it was Coors? Busch Beer, that's what it was. It was the Busch Beer commercial, and that's all she thinks about when she hears that hook. But the whole song revolves around that chorus, right? And be a simple man, be something you can love and understand, right? Won't you do this for me, son, if you can understand, or if you can. And so I was thinking about this song, and I thought, well, what does it mean to be simple? And when I think of the word simple, I think about kids, right? And I don't mean that in a negative way, but kids really aren't complicated. They will tell you exactly what they think. There is zero filter. Listen, if a kid tells you that you are ugly, you are ugly. Listen, I think you're beautiful, but if there's just zero filter, if you really want an honest opinion, just ask a child. My son Brock, when he was younger, that kid, he had no problem telling anyone anything. I mean, we talked to him for years about what it meant to have a filter. That just because something pops into your head does not mean that it should come out of your mouth. And there was this one time we were in a store. I don't know if it's Publix or Walmart, doesn't matter. But he was sitting in the cart, which he rarely did. But we were walking, and somebody walked by that was clearly of an advanced age. And my beautiful, sweet, rambunctious little boy opened his cute little mouth and said very loudly, "Daddy, look how old that person is." And I was just like, I mean, full volume, no regard for anything. He just like cranked it up to 11 and word vomited that everywhere. You know what I mean? Just for everybody to enjoy. And I was like, bro, what are you doing to me? Yeah. He did that so much that his sister, who was still a child at the time, was like, dude, you can't say things like that out loud. Now, I obviously don't mean that that's what I'm talking about, right? Like, we're not meaning to be simple like that, right? That's going to get you punched. But even Jesus saw the wisdom in being simple like a child. This is in Matthew's account, the gospel called Matthew. And Jesus, the disciples around him, they're asking, who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom? And so Jesus responds with this. It's started with verse 2. This is the Message version. For an answer, Jesus called over a child whom he stood in the middle of the room, and he said, "I'm telling you, once and for all, that unless you return to square one and start over like children, you're not even going to get a look at the kingdom, let alone get in. Whoever becomes simple and elemental again, like this child, will rank high in God's kingdom. What's more, when you receive the childlike on my account, it's the same as receiving me." So the question then becomes, then how do we get back to that kind of simplicity? How do we become something that we can love, something that we can understand? And if you look at the advice that's given through the song that's handed down to them through these mother figures, I think we'll discover some really deep wisdom. So that second verse says this: "Oh, take your time, don't live too fast, troubles will come and they will pass." And I think that we all know people that live that way, right? They live that too fast. They are full of drama. They attract drama. It doesn't matter, like the situation, they can turn it into a soap opera, right? Like you're thinking about them right now. If you can't think of anybody, it's probably you. So I don't know anybody like that. Do you now? Anyway, several years ago, my wife had a very good friend that needed some help. We will call her Bethany, all right? And we encouraged Bethany to move close to us. She was a single mom with 2 kids. She didn't have much of a family to speak of, and so we kind of became her surrogate family. She didn't live with us, but she ate dinner with us all the time. Our kids were together all the time. Saturday mornings they would come over and we would cook big breakfasts together. We took trips together. We became family, right? Bethany could not make a good choice to save her life. Like it was almost incapable of making that good choice. And no matter what advice or counsel we gave her, she just decided to do whatever she wanted to do, right? And then it was us like rescuing her from these situations that she was choosing to get into. And after some time, we realized we actually weren't helping her. We were enabling her, right? We were actually making the situation worse. And so Tori made the decision to set some healthy boundaries with this friendship, because her bad decisions were not only affecting her and her kids, but they were beginning to really affect us as well. And it was starting to spill into our life. So Tori and Bethany met, and the conversation seemed to go really well. It ended well, and we felt good about the new direction that it was going to go, until Bethany got home and put a few drinks into her, and she got onto social media, and she absolutely blasted my wife for everybody to see. She said atrocious things about my wife and called her the worst names. And it absolutely crushed my wife. I mean, completely crushed her because we had spent years pouring into this woman, pouring into this family, and trying to love them, right, like we would our own, through all the drama. And Tori realized that for her own sanity, that she had to let this friendship go. And it was a really difficult decision. It was heartbreaking. We loved her and her kids, and they were both little, so they were like my adopted kids. Don't live too fast, right? Troubles will come and they'll pass. The early church leader, Paul, offered the same advice in a letter that he wrote to an ancient church in a city called Thessalonica. The letter's called 1 Thessalonians. That's in chapter 4. I've got it up here for you guys. And he's talking, it says, make it your goal to live a quiet life, minding your own business and working with your hands just as we've instructed before. I think that's amazing advice that American Christians and the American church really need to take to heart, all right? But Paul is encouraging them to not act like those people that live too fast, right? Instead, to love others, to live quietly, and to mind your own affairs. Verse 3 of the song says this, forget your lust for the rich man's gold. All that you need is in your soul. And I don't want to spend too much time on this one because I think everybody here can agree that greed is bad, right? Greed is bad. Like if you disagree with that sentence, we should talk later. Greed is bad, particularly when it's done at a corporate level, which is almost never talked about from the church. It's always at a personal level. Your greed is bad, but you should give us all your money, right? But I think there's deep wisdom there. Paul talks about this in 1 Timothy. It says this, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And you can continue to read that. But greed corrupts everything that it touches. Our world is on fire because of the love of money. So don't be greedy. Greed is bad. We're going to move on. But this verse 4 is the one that I want to camp out on for a little bit and spend some time. And it says this, boy, don't you worry. You'll find yourself. Follow your heart and nothing else. And you can do this if you try. All that I want for you, my son, is to be satisfied. Now, I can remember as a kid growing up in church, being hammered. Taught is such a soft word when it comes to this passage. Being hammered week in and week out that my heart, that my thoughts, that my feelings were evil. Every week. Every single week. And there is a single verse that's used above all others that created this worm theology. And it is worm theology. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, that you're lower than worms. I heard that almost every single week. One verse, and it's Jeremiah 17:9. And it says this, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? That clobber passage was used to tell me that I can't trust my own thoughts. Boom! It says it, right? The Bible says it. It's settled. Doesn't matter how you feel about it. Doesn't matter if you think differently. Your heart is wicked. Desperately wicked. And you can't trust it. Now, first, this verse has nothing to do with you. Absolutely nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with us at all. Jeremiah is writing about the nation of Judah that existed long ago. And he's using hyperbole because the Babylonian Empire was getting ready to invade, getting ready to take them over. They were getting ready to go into exile. And he's using hyperbole because he's telling them that you've disobeyed God and now this calamity is coming upon you. All right? So that's first. It has nothing to do with us, which is like literally the entire Old Testament. Okay? Just know that. Has nothing to do with American people living in 2023 in Gainesville, Florida, or wherever you're watching from. Doesn't have anything to do with you. Okay? Second, not only that, but it is a horrible translation. This translation is based on something called the Masoretic text. All right? The Masoretic text was put together. I wrote it here so I wouldn't forget it, and I just forgot it. It's between the 7th and 10th century CE. All right, so this was put together centuries after not only the original was written, but centuries after Jesus was on the earth. All right, so this translation was based on that. But the New Testament authors used and quoted something called the Septuagint. The Septuagint is the Greek translation of the Hebrew scriptures of the Old Testament. All right, that was put together in the early to mid 3rd century BCE. So even before Jesus was on the scene, this is the Bible, this is the Old Testament that they were reading, that they used, that they quoted from, and a much better translation. So listen, if we go back and we use the Septuagint translation of this text, this is what it says. The heart is deep beyond all things, and it is the man, even so, who can know him. Imagine what our life would have been like. I think back to as a child, if I had heard that the heart is deep versus the heart is wicked, what that would have saved me. And you know, I didn't have a horrible upbringing. I'm so thankful for my parents because they didn't live that out. They didn't teach that. But there are plenty of kids whose parents bore that out in their life at home as well. The trauma and abuse that created. You want to talk about setting people up for failure, setting people up for abuse within the church, it starts there. Laying all of that aside. Okay, laying that aside. It's not about us. Terrible translation. All right, laying all of that aside. Let's just say that even if Jeremiah means exactly what he says, all right? So what? Even if Jeremiah meant that, so what? Are we supposed to take advice on human psychology from an ancient man with an ancient worldview and view of human the inner workings of humanity? Do we do that with their cosmology? Do we take what the Old Testament says and apply it to what we understand our universe looks like today? Do we do that? Absolutely not. Because if we did do that, then the earth would be the center of the universe. The earth would be flat, and there would be a 3-tiered universe. The heavens, which is above the earth, which is here, and Sheol, which is below the earth. That's the 3-tiered system that they believed in. No, we don't believe that. No, we don't teach that. So why would we do the same thing with human psychology and say this ancient man that lived who knows how long ago said this thing? I would say that it's trash theology. I would say that Jeremiah is wrong and it needs to be left aside and we need to move past it. The only reason that verse is used is to control you. That's it. Excuse me. You know, back in my evangelical days, I'd have been like, Satan's trying to distract you. Satan's got you. But the only reason that verse is used is to control you, right? To rob you of your agency, to take away your own authority in your own life. That's the only reason that it's used. You are wicked, and you cannot trust your thoughts or your feelings. But you can trust mine. Because I'm the man of God. Because I'm standing up here in this position of authority. You can trust my thoughts, and you can trust my feelings. See how asinine that is? That doesn't make sense at all. At all. And when you say it out loud, it's ridiculous. But how many of us sat underneath teachings just like that? And just took it all in and even regurgitated it. If that were truly the case, then anything we believe about God, like if all of our hearts are wicked, if we can't trust our thoughts, if that's really the case, then all of our thoughts about God are useless. Because all of theology is just some person's thinking about the divine. Right? So how can we trust anything? Because it's all based on somebody's thoughts. Using that line of thinking, listen to this passage found in 2 Timothy 1:7. It says this. Go ahead and show that, yeah. It's not in there? My bad. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, Write this down, 2 Timothy 1:7. I'll make sure it's up on the stuff later. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. So take back control, right? I think that's what that means. Take back control of your life over your own spirituality. That Jeremiah passage has been used to do nothing but warp, manipulate, and abuse. Boy, don't you worry. You'll find yourself. Follow your heart and nothing else. And you can do this if you try. All that I want for you, my son, is to be satisfied. So listen to those words of Jesus again. I'm telling you, once and for all, that unless you return to square one and start over like children, you're not even going to get a look at the kingdom, let alone get in. Whoever becomes simple and elemental again like this child will rank high in God's kingdom. And how do we get back to the simple, elemental life? It's all found in that song. Don't live too fast. Don't get caught up in all the drama that life seems to offer. All right? Don't get caught up in all that stuff that's going on in our culture right now. I'm not saying don't get involved. I'm just saying don't get caught up in the drama. Live quiet lives. Mind your own business. Mind your own business. Don't spend your life chasing money. Greed corrupts and kills everything it touches. Every evil in our world and in the church can be traced back to greed. And the third thing is this. Listen to yourself. Learn to trust yourself. Listen to your gut. Lay aside that abusive teaching that you're corrupt to the core and take back the God-given authority that you have. You have a sound mind, so use it. So, as we come to our time of reflection, I'm going to guide everybody through this process with a few questions of the things that we just talked about. And so, for anybody that's new, either here or on the stream, we don't do like an altar call at the end. We'll walk through some questions. We'll take a few moments to kind of check back in with ourselves and listen to what our body's telling us. And after the questions, I'll pray for us, and then we'll participate in communion. And for us, communion is a weekly reminder of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. And communion is open to all who want to participate. So my first question for you is this. What stood out the most to you? Of all of those things that we talked about in that song, Simple Man, what was the thing that grabbed you the most? And why do you think that is? Now, depending on which one hit you the most, what do you think that you're being asked to do? Whichever one was the one that grabbed you, what is it that you think you're being asked to do? And the last question I have for you is this. How can you begin to trust yourself again? How do you start trusting the sound mind that God has given you? For those that are thinking through those questions, I have some thoughts about how to start doing that, and we'll be posting those tomorrow, so watch that. That'll be on our social media and in the virtual campus to kind of help in that process if you need some first steps in learning to trust yourself again. Let's pray. God, we thank you for your warm embrace, for your words of wisdom and your guiding love. Help us to live simple lives, to not get caught up in the never-ending drama that is our culture, to not participate in the greed that is killing our planet to the best of our ability, and to learn to listen and trust the instincts you have given us. I pray that our lives reflect the life of Jesus and help us to walk that path as an invitation to others, to live in a healthy and sustainable way. And thank you for this time together and for the things that we will leave here with. Most of all, thank you for your deep love and sacrifice. I pray that these small symbols of your life remind us of the cost of this deep love. In your name we pray. Amen.